Hello, friends, and welcome back to Bookish Chaos. Today, we are going to be talking about the book God of Malice. In not really a review, we're going to do a short overview of God of Malice. It's not going to be like an in depth review. We're not going over everything. If that's something you want, let me know. But this is more going to be how writing style can affect the way you want to read other things. For example, I am going to read the rest of the Legacy of the Gods series by Rena Kent, so the ones that come after God of Malice, versus Twisted Love by Anna Huang. While I liked that book enough, I didn't care enough about the side characters to read the rest. So, God of Malice is a dark romance book. It has very dark themes. The trigger warnings tell you that you will read dubcon and non-con. Now, I myself didn't consider most of the things in there to be non-con. I considered most of them all to be dubcon. We are going to read the definitions. The definitions. For those who don't know, dubious consent, dubcon, is the term that was coined by the fanfiction community and has kind of been adopted by bookish community and for people who read dark romance to bring attention to the gray areas between grape and consent. And non-con is a form of SA that occurs when someone engages in schmegdual conduct with another person without their consent. Where this where were this real life, both would be considered grape and not okay. I would just like to point that out. Reading dark romance is a way for not everybody, but for some people to experience these darker themes in a safe and non real life applicable way. And for some, like me, it is a way to take traumatic events or things that have happened to you and explore them and work through them in a safe environment where even if it triggers you and you have a reaction to the things that you're reading, you can do it in a safe environment, for example, in my house. And it's different for every single person. So, the trauma that I have experienced in my life, I have worked through enough that as far as reading dark romance things, I have almost no triggers. I can usually read things and be fine. And then sometimes when I have unresolved trauma, it can pop up in weird places, like when you're reading A Court of Mist and Fury and Tamlin is gaslighting the hell out of Feyre and not physically hurting her, but could almost physically hurt her and being emotionally awful. I really hope that you cannot hear my dog chewing on his bone in the background. I really hope that this microphone is doing its job. Anyway, when I was reading A Court of Mist and Fury, I lost it. I listened to it on audio and listening to the way that she felt in the moment when he blew up her chest of paints and didn't give a care for her or the fact that she could have been hurt or died triggered me so bad that I was bawling and hysterical. And that's not even that awful. You know what I mean? Do not read dark romance if you have unresolved trauma. Do not read it if it's not something that you enjoy. Do not read it if you don't want to explore themes like this in a safe way. If exploring themes like this is something that is awful for you, don't do it. Also, just because people like to read dark romance does not mean that these things are okay in real life. Almost every single thing that happens in a dark romance book is illegal, and people who do them in real life need to go to jail forever. I'm just saying. So, anyway, now that we have done that, okay, we open on Glendon King. Her name is so hard. I'm going to call her Glenn. 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 Glenn from now on. So, we open on Glendon King, and she is standing on kind of the edge of a cliff. She's near a cliff. And below it is like a roiling ocean, rocks at the bottom. And so she's standing on a cliff thinking about her best friend who died a couple months ago. And a stranger appears out of nowhere. And when I say this book is not for the faint of heart, I mean immediately, like page 2, we got some dubcon going on. I will not get into that in this video at all. Things are done, coerced into being done, essentially. Life-threatening coercion. Things happen. Schmexually. And so that happens and she goes home. And then we get her explanation. She goes to college and we get her talking to her girls in a group chat, trying to figure out who's going to drive her to Brighton Island, which is where their college is at, because she has flying anxiety. So she's like, no, I don't want to fly there. We're going to drive. I need someone to drive me. And we get a little bit about her brothers. She has twin brothers, Landon and Brandon. And Landon is, we learn that many people in their family and a couple people not in their family have, I'm going to say, it's, I don't really know how to describe it. I think that part of it was hinted at, like, autism. Autism doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have or feel emotions, but they have like an emotion processing inability, sir. An emotion processing inability that normal people don't have. But so Brandon is less like that. Brandon is not. Landon, however, basically feels no emotions ever, as far as we are at this point led to believe. I'm assuming that Landon gets his own dark romance book in the series because it is a standalone series where each book you could just read the book. So you could just read God of Malice, or you could read the rest of them, and the side characters are tied together, but the stories themselves are not. You don't need to read God of Malice, and you don't then need to read God of Wrath or whatever. One brother is one of these things is not like the other. One of them is kind and caring and compassionate, and the other one is not. So she is in an art school called Royal Elite University. We're going to call it REU. And on this island is where REU is and where King's U is. And King's U is attended by essentially American Mafia children. And REU is essentially British Mafia children. It's like old British money versus Mafia money. But not to say that some of the people who endow REU are not also Mafia like her family. The Kings are essentially British Mafia. All right. There are other kinds of ethnicities. Children of other ethnicities. I have a lisp. There are children of other ethnicities at both colleges, but the majority split is American versus British. There are gangs with each. There are the elites on the British campus, REU, and then King's U has two, the Serpents and the Heathens, and we learn a lot about the Heathens, and we learn a little bit about the elites in this book. We know almost nothing about the Serpents other than they are awful, and the worst one of them all, but it's because you meet people from the Heathens, and I mean, you meet someone from the Serpents, but we're not going to get into that. Got it. I really, really hope that you can't hear them playing because that's going to ruin my video and I'm going to be so mad. Okay, so when we're at college, she learns that the stranger she experienced on the cliff is Killian Carson, who is a member of the Heathens. This is a dark romance book, so the person involved in the dub-con at the beginning. Killian Carson and her do end up together. It does end up being he will do anything for her kind of relationship, but it's a very rough road to get there. I can do a deeper dive into this book, as I stated earlier, if anybody would like that. I really, really enjoyed this book. I also would recommend it to anybody who likes to read dark romance. So, now that that's done, and it's been like 45 minutes, we're going to talk about author writing abilities. Now, I'm not saying that Rena Kent is a better author than Anna Huang. I'm not saying that. I enjoyed both books that I read. The difference between these two books, other than Twisted Love, is not dark romance. Twisted Love has dark themes, like kidnap and off-page murder of a family, on-page memories of child abuse, and attempted murder of a child, but the romance itself is not dark. I did do a video on Twisted Love. I will have that pop up in the cards. So the difference as far as like the dark themes in Twisted Love versus dark romance is the male main character doesn't do anything considered harmful to the female main character, which is not the case in God of Malice. But since this is not a side-by-side comparison of the stories, we're not going to worry about that because you can't do a side-by-side comparison of something that is dark and something that is not. The difference between the two is if I myself... Don't chew on that. That looked really small. I don't want you to choke. Just a minute. I gotta go get this tiny bone from my dog. I don't know where I left off from that. So the comparison in this video is going to be, would I continue the standalone series or would I not? With Twisted Love by Anna Huang, I enjoyed that book in a way that I didn't DNF it. I did not, however, enjoy that book in a way where I didn't care what happened to the side characters. I gave no shits about any of the side characters, minus the fact that having a best friend who is a princess of another country would be kind of cool. Only thing I gave a crap about anybody else. Versus the boys in God of Malice and the girlfriends of Glenn. The girlfriends of Glenn. I actually cared about. I actually gave a shit about. They were interesting. They grabbed my attention. The little bits that they were on page. I mean, they were on page a lot because you only get, like, for the first half of the book, Glenn is trying to avoid Killian. Why did I forget his name? It's my favorite name for a man ever. That's why I couldn't figure out if I enjoyed it or not. See my short of me with my video of me trying to figure out why I enjoyed this book so much. But the difference is stark in how much I wanted to learn more. I already started the second one in the series. So that is what I think makes a good standalone series type of book, because I thought that the storytelling in Twisted Love was very good. I understand the concept of God of Malice. It was not very plot driven. It's very character driven. And I think that that is the trick to writing a standalone series where every single book is a different character, like a different side character from the original standalone book, is it needs to be extremely character driven over plot driven for me, because if you don't dive into the characters, even just a little bit into the side characters in the first book, I don't care about reading the rest of them because I don't care enough about the people surrounding our original main characters enough to want to continue. That is why I will be continuing the God of Malice series and not the Twisted Love series, because while Twisted Love was good, I didn't care. And I do care about all of the boys in God of Malice. I care that one of my boys is currently hiding his sexuality and he's about to let it all out. But that is like book 5. So I am getting ready. Hello, you come to be in the video. I have a video coming up on Crossed by Emily McIntyre. And I'm going to attempt to do a video on Kushiel's Dirt, which is probably my favorite book currently ever and my favorite series currently ever as an adult. I mean, as a child, Queen Turf wrote my favorite series, but we're not going to get into that. that. So I will see you guys soon on my channel, and thank you for coming. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell button so that you can be notified every time I post a video.